When I asked for time off to attend my brother's funeral, my boss snapped, "People die all the time. Grief is not an excuse for laziness." As tears filled my eyes, he tossed my time off request in the trash and said, "If you leave, don't bother coming back." So I took his advice literally, and forwarded our entire conversation to his boss's boss. He was walked out in front of everyone 2 days later. I never thought I'd be the type to post a story like this, but after everything that happened, I feel like I have to. Maybe it'll help somebody who's stuck under a boss like the one I had. I used to work at a logistics company in Dayton, Ohio. We handled a lot of freight contracts, trucking companies, warehouses, suppliers. Nothing fancy. I was a shipping coordinator. Pretty much meant sitting in a small office, calling drivers, filling out paperwork, and making sure freight got where it was supposed to go. My coworkers were all right. Mostly hardworking people just trying to get through the day. The real problem was my boss, Mike. Mike was one of those guys who thought being mean made him old school. Mid-40s, wore polo shirts that didn't fit right, slicked his hair back like he was in a 90s sitcom, and always had those stupid mirrored sunglasses on his head, even indoors. He liked to call people soft and whiny if they didn't work 12-hour shifts without complaining. He thought treating people like garbage made him efficient. I didn't love the job, but it was steady. I needed steady. Then last September, my brother Danny died. Danny was the best person I knew. He was the kind of guy who'd show up at your house to fix your sink even if you didn't ask. The kind of guy who never missed a birthday. He was only 32 when he died. Some drunk driver blew a red light and hit him on Route 35. I found out at work. My mom called me. When I answered and heard her voice, I knew something terrible had happened. She was sobbing so hard she couldn't even talk at first. I had to walk out to the loading dock just to hear her. When she finally got the words out. "It's Danny. He's gone." It felt like the air got sucked out of my lungs. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the pavement. After a while, I wiped my face and walked to Mike's office. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn the doorknob. Mike didn't even look up from his desk. "What?" he barked. I swallowed and stepped inside. My voice came out small. "Mike, I just found out my brother died. I need some time off, to help with the funeral. Just a few days." He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and stared at me like I was dirt under his shoe. "People die all the time," he said, slow and cold. I blinked. I thought maybe I didn't hear him right. "I just need a few days," I said again, barely holding it together. He shook his head. "Grief's not an excuse for laziness. We're already short-staffed. You leaving would screw everybody else over." I stood there, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. He grabbed my time off request form off his desk, crumpled it up, and tossed it in the trash like it was garbage. "If you leave," he said, with this little smirk, "don't bother coming back." I just stood there. My brother was dead. I couldn't even think straight. And here this guy was, treating me like I was asking for a vacation. I didn't say a word. I just turned around and walked out. I didn't clock out. Didn't pack my stuff. I just left. I drove straight to my parents' house. Mom was sitting on the couch staring at nothing. Dad was outside on the porch, just sitting, gripping the railing so tight his knuckles were white. I spent the night in my old bedroom. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling like my insides were hollowed out. Somewhere around 3 a.m., though, the sadness started to turn into something else. Rage. Mike didn't just humiliate me. He made my brother's death into a problem for him. He acted like my family's loss was inconvenient. The more I thought about it, the hotter the anger burned. Mike had been doing this for years, yelling at sick drivers, mocking workers who needed time off for their kids, harassing anyone who showed even a little weakness. People were scared to stand up to him because they needed the paycheck. I realized something that night: Mike was a coward. And cowards crumble when you hit them where it hurts. The next morning, after drinking 2 cups of bad coffee, I sat down with my laptop. I pulled up my work email. And I started writing. I wrote everything that happened, every word Mike said, every cruel thing he did. I dug deep. I listed specific incidents from the past 6 months. The time Mike screamed at a pregnant worker for taking too many bathroom breaks. The time he laughed when a driver had a panic attack and had to be hospitalized. The time he called another coordinator a pussy for asking to leave early for a doctor's appointment. I didn't hold anything back. And at the end of the email, I attached the smoking gun, a recording. I had a habit of recording work meetings on my phone because Mike had a history of lying about conversations later. Ohio's a one-party consent state, which means I didn't need his permission. I had the whole confrontation, him tossing my request in the trash, calling grief laziness, telling me to get out, all caught in crystal clear audio. I sent the email to HR Mike's boss, Regional Manager Allison Greaves. Allison's boss, VP of Operations Henry Klein Company Legal Counsel, found her email online, and I blind CC'd myself, just in case they tried to delete it later. I hit send at exactly 8:14 a.m. Then I closed the laptop and sat on the porch with my dad, waiting. 2 days passed. Nothing. No call. No email. No apology. I started wondering if maybe they were just going to sweep it under the rug like they always did. Then on the 3rd day, my phone buzzed. A text from my friend Sam, who still worked at the warehouse. Dude. Mike's getting walked out right now. Corporate's here. It's crazy. I stared at the screen, not sure I was reading it right. He's losing his shit. HR is here. There's security too. I called Sam immediately. He picked up, whispering like he was hiding behind a desk. Bro, they pulled him into a meeting like an hour ago. Then they all came out, HR lady, legal dude, Allison. And Mike's yelling, "This is bullshit. I made this place run," and shit like that. Then they made him clean out his desk right in front of everyone. I sat there, listening, heart hammering in my chest. They had 2 security guys standing by the whole time, Sam said. When he started mouthing off, one of them put his hand on Mike's shoulder and said, "Let's not make this worse." He shut up real fast. I could picture it. Mike, red-faced, humiliated, shoved out the same door he used to bark orders through. Sam said everyone was dead silent the whole time. No one said a word. No one helped him carry his boxes. No one even looked at him. He was alone. Exactly the way he treated everybody else. That afternoon, I got a call from Regional Manager Allison. She sounded nervous, almost like she was scared I was going to sue. She apologized over and over again. She said Mike's behavior was deeply inappropriate and not reflective of company values. She offered me my job back, with a raise, more PTO, and an official letter of apology from corporate. I listened politely. But when she finished, I told her I wouldn't be coming back. I couldn't. That building would never feel clean to me again. I told her I wanted a formal severance instead. And I wanted it in writing that I had left voluntarily with full eligibility for rehire and unemployment, if needed. She agreed immediately. Guess they were scared I'd take it further. After I turned down the job offer and made it clear I wanted out, I thought it was over. I thought Mike was gone, and I could just move on. I was wrong. It started small. A few days after the severance papers were signed, I started getting weird calls from unknown numbers. No one would say anything when I answered. Just heavy breathing, then hang-ups. At first, I figured it was a wrong number. But then my friend Sam sent me a screenshot. It was a post from a local Facebook group for truckers and logistics workers. It said, "Watch out for my name. Snake who rats on his coworkers to corporate when he doesn't get his way." No name attached, but everyone knew who wrote it. The tone, the timing, it screamed Mike. He wasn't just mad. He wanted revenge. I didn't panic. Not yet. I took screenshots of everything. Saved the call logs. Wrote down dates and times. I figured maybe it would blow over. Then, about a week later, my parents got a letter in the mail. It was a fake notice from a collections agency saying they owed money for damages to company property. It was complete bullshit. The address on the letter traced back to a P.O. box in Huber Heights, the same town where Mike lived. I knew it was him. I called the local police and filed a report for harassment. They didn't seem that interested, but at least I got it on record. A few nights later, I was sitting on the porch when headlights swept across the yard. A car slowed down out front. Stopped. Then just idled there. It sat there for a long minute. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I couldn't see who was inside. The windows were tinted dark. After a few minutes, the car drove off. No plates. I realized then. Mike wasn't going to just move on. He wanted to scare me. He wanted me to regret standing up to him. But he didn't know me like he thought he did. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. The next morning, I gathered every screenshot, every voicemail, every police report. I wrote another email. This time, I sent it directly to Henry Klein, the VP of Operations. I made it very clear, Mike was harassing me after being terminated. He was impersonating a collections agency. He was stalking my family. If it didn't stop, I would be calling a lawyer. If necessary, I would sue for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. I hit send and waited. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Henry. He wasn't calm this time. He sounded panicked. "Please don't take legal action," he said. "We had no idea this was going on. We will handle it immediately." I could hear papers shuffling in the background, like he was pulling files while we talked. "We will assist you in filing a formal restraining order, at no cost to you," he said. Mike's actions are in violation of multiple agreements he signed upon termination. Apparently, when Mike got fired, he signed a document saying he wouldn't contact or harass any employees or former employees. Breaking that wasn't just stupid, it was expensive. I told Henry the first wasn't playing games. I wanted proof the company was taking action. He promised to send a written confirmation by the next morning. Later that day, Sam texted me again. "Bro, rumor is Mike's being sued by corporate. Also, heard he tried to get a job at another logistics company. They called for a reference and HR flat out said no comment lol. Mike wasn't just losing jobs. He was losing everything. And it was just getting started." By the end of that week, I figured Mike had finally hit rock bottom. Corporate had confirmed in writing that they were preparing legal action against him. I had started the process for a restraining order. And HR had blacklisted him from working with any of their vendors or partners across Ohio. It should have been over. But Mike wasn't the type to take his losses quietly. A few days later, my dad called me. "You better come home," he said, his voice tight. When I got there, he was standing out by the garage, holding a brick. There was a note taped to it. The note said, "Rats get what's coming." Dad found it that morning, sitting on the porch right where Mom usually went to have her coffee. It was a threat. Clear as day. I drove straight to the police station. This time they took it seriously. I showed them the brick, the note, the earlier harassment reports. The officer I spoke to actually looked concerned when I laid it all out. They opened a formal case. I also contacted Henry again, forwarding pictures of the brick and the note. He didn't reply right away, but when he did, his tone had shifted completely. "We are proceeding with full legal action," he wrote. "Please know we are taking every step to ensure you and your family are protected." I thought about getting a security camera installed at my parents' place, but by the time I got to it, the decision was made for me. That night, police cars showed up at Mike's house. Sam texted me again. "Dude, they arrested him." I couldn't believe it at first. But it was true. Turns out, Mike had gotten sloppy. The fake collections notice? He mailed it using his home address by accident on the first attempt. The brick? His fingerprints were on the tape. He was arrested for harassment, stalking, and making terroristic threats. But here's where it gets even crazier. At the hearing, Mike tried to blame the company. He claimed that corporate set him up because they wanted to make an example out of him. He said they pressured me into filing complaints. He said he was the real victim. The judge didn't buy it for 1 second. Especially after hearing the recording I made of Mike calling grief laziness and throwing my request in the trash. The whole courtroom went dead silent when the audio played. Mike just sat there, red-faced and sweating, as his own words destroyed him. But that wasn't the end. Because while all this was happening, I got an unexpected email. It was from another former employee. A woman named Rachel, who used to work in accounting. She said she heard about what happened to me, and she had her own story. Apparently, Mike had sexually harassed her when she worked under him. He made comments about her clothes, her body, asked her out even after she said no. She had been too scared to report it at the time. Now, seeing what happened, she was ready to speak up. She wasn't the only one. Within a week, 5 more former employees came forward. Stories about Mike mocking a disabled worker. Screaming at a single mom for leaving early when her kid was sick. Telling a driver he was faking a back injury after a crash. It was a pattern. And now it was all coming to light. Corporate had no choice. They issued a public statement about committing to a respectful and supportive work environment. Mike's name wasn't mentioned directly, but everyone knew. Behind the scenes, corporate offered settlements to several of the employees who came forward. Rachel got a payout. A driver who Mike screamed at got his old job back, with a raise. Another guy got reimbursed for unpaid overtime Mike had forgotten to log. The walls Mike built out of fear and bullying came crashing down around him. All because he couldn't stand the idea of someone saying no to him. All because he thought throwing my time off request in the trash would scare me away. After the court hearing and the arrests, you'd think that would be enough. But Mike still had one last card to play. He filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against the company. He actually claimed he was fired without cause and that he was the victim of character assassination. When I heard about it, I honestly laughed for the first time in months. It was so pathetic. So desperate. But it wasn't a joke. Corporate took it seriously. Lawsuits mean bad press. Bad press means lost contracts. So they didn't just fight it quietly. They decided to bury him. They hired a legal team so Big Mike's lawyer didn't stand a chance. They brought witnesses, former employees, warehouse workers, even old clients who had heard Mike scream at them over the phone. They pulled up his past write-ups, old HR complaints, audio recordings, even security footage. Every nasty thing Mike ever did, every cruel word, every threat, every tantrum, it was all laid out in court. And my testimony? It was the final nail. I sat there, across from him, looked him dead in the eye, and told the whole story, how I found out my brother died. How Mike laughed at me. How he tossed my grief into a trash can like it was garbage. How he told me to leave and never come back. When I finished, Mike's lawyer didn't even bother cross-examining me. There was nothing left to defend. The judge threw out Mike's lawsuit with prejudice, meaning he couldn't file again. And then the court slapped him with an order to pay the company's legal fees. Over $85,000. Mike couldn't pay it. He had no job, no savings, and a wrecked reputation. The company froze his assets. Took his car. Took what was left of his 401k. The only reason they didn't take his house was because it was technically under his wife's name. Speaking of which, she filed for divorce 2 weeks later. cited emotional cruelty and financial recklessness. Mike lost everything. As for me, I didn't walk away clean either. The stress caught up to me. I had trouble sleeping. I jumped whenever the phone rang. I started seeing a therapist, because even though I won, I didn't feel like a winner. The truth was, standing up to Mike had cost me a lot. But when I sat at my brother's grave, I told him the truth. I didn't let him win. I didn't let him make your death a joke. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a little bit lighter. Mike is broke, blacklisted, divorced, and facing more lawsuits from former employees. The company made major changes, new policies for harassment, new grief leave rules, mandatory management training. I finished my certification, got a new job at a better company, one that actually treats people like human beings. And every time I drive past that old warehouse, I smile a little. Because the man who thought grief was laziness, the man who thought he was untouchable, ended up thrown out like yesterday's trash. Exactly the way he treated everyone else.